This happened a few years ago. I was 34 and a marine biologist. After a wild research season, I needed peace. I rented a wooden cabin on a small, remote island. It felt tranquil when I first arrived. The waves crashed on the shore, and the forest surrounded me. I thought I'd finally find some silence. On my second night, I saw strange, flickering lights near the cliffs. They looked like lanterns. I felt a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Maybe it was locals celebrating. I hadn't seen anyone since I got there, but I thought they might be from a nearby town. I tried to ignore it and focus on my work. But the next few nights were different. I started hearing faint sounds from the woods, like drumming. It was rhythmic and haunting. I lay awake, wondering if I was imagining it. Animals, the wind. I didn't know. Maybe the isolation was getting to me. One evening, I went outside to get some fresh air. The night was cool, and the trees felt heavy with shadows. That's when I noticed something strange. Symbols were carved into the nearby trees. They were intricate, and I didn't remember seeing them before. My heart raced. It felt wrong. Who had done this? I hadn't seen anyone since arriving. I started to feel a deep unease. What did these marks mean? I went back inside, trying to shake off my fear. But I felt the weight of being watched. It was unsettling. I thought about leaving, but the thought of packing up in the dark was terrifying. I felt trapped. I wanted answers, but I didn't know where to find them. That night the drums started again. They pounded through the trees, louder. I was torn. Should I go see? My hands were shaking. Should I stay locked inside? Was that even safer? Then I froze. I went to the window and looked out. Shadows moved among the trees. I couldn't see clearly, but I felt my heart race. Was that the flickering lights again? It felt like something watched me. I had to know what was happening, but what if it was too much? Then I heard it. Whispers. They called my name softly, echoing through the trees. I turned around, feeling the chill crawl down my spine. Was someone there? I took a step back, trying to make sense of it all. I decided to call out. Hello? My voice broke the silence. I waited, breath held. Nothing was there. The whispers faded, but the oppressive silence felt heavy. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. The drums returned, louder than before, and I could almost hear a low chant. My instinct screamed at me to hide, but my curiosity pulled me to the door. I hesitated, listening intently. The shadows danced in the moonlight, and then I saw them, figures moving just beyond the trees. I was frozen, caught between fear and the desire to know what waited for me outside. I took a deep breath, heart pounding. The figures moved again, and I felt something primal stir within me, a mix of fear and curiosity that I couldn't ignore. I twisted the doorknob, but hesitated for a moment. I shouldn't go outside. I wanted to scream at myself to stay. But the shadows beckoned me. I opened the door slowly, the creak sounding loud in the stillness. I stepped into the cool night air, the faint sound of drums guiding me forward. Every instinct screamed for me to retreat, but the rhythm pulled me on. I felt like an insect drawn to a flame. As I ventured toward the trees, the flickering lights, the strange lanterns, grew brighter. I squinted, trying to make out the silhouettes through the branches. They were unmistakably human, yet there was something wrong about them. Their outlines glowed under the moonlight, and despite their movements they didn't make a sound. Then I saw their faces. They were painted, adorned with marks like those on the trees. I froze. Panic twisted in my gut. Who were they? What did they want? I felt more trapped than ever. I turned to leave, but the soft whispers returned, now just behind me. Come join us. The voice was a soft, aching echo, and it sent shivers through me. I looked back and saw a figure nearby. He wore an elaborate mask that blended into the shadows, his eyes glowing bright with a strange intensity. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a roots. Please, I whispered, unsure who I was addressing. "What do you want?" But my question was lost to the pounding drums. The sound grew louder, wrapping around me like a storm, enveloping me in a chaotic dance of noise. The figures started moving in closer, surrounding me, their rhythms synchronized as they began to chant. It felt as though they were calling for me, beckoning me to step closer. I turned and ran, the cold bite of fright pushing me. Branches scratched my arms and I hardly felt it. I just needed to get away. The cabin loomed ahead, but just as I reached the door I turned around. The chanting had dulled, but the figures weren't chasing me. They stood there eerily still, as if waiting for something. I slammed the door shut, heart racing, and pressed my back against it. Silence enveloped me, but the echoes of the drums still rang in my ears. What had I stumbled into? Who were they? I glanced out the window, heart still racing. They were gone, swallowed by the trees. But then I remembered the symbols, the marks etched into the trees and the ground. I needed to know more. I grabbed a flashlight and opened the door again, fear drumming in time with my heart. I stepped outside, this time more determined than scared. As I approached the first tree, I shone the light onto the symbols. That's when I saw it, a mark among the carvings that looked almost like a map. It was hauntingly familiar. I felt a shiver run up my spine. Why did it seem to point towards the cliffs? As I turned, the woods erupted with the sound of drums again, louder and more urgent than before. I was swept into an unknown current, and before I could react, I stumbled back toward the cabin. A figure appeared at the edge of the trees, illuminated briefly by the beam of my flashlight. I blinked, and it was gone. Now I had to find out more. I had no choice. I was trapped and had awakened something. I stepped back into the cabin, heart hammering against my ribcage. The silence inside felt deafening after the chaos outside. I sat on the edge of the old sofa, gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. I had to think. The symbols. What did they mean? And why did the map feel so familiar? I opened my phone, desperate for anything that would provide clarity. No signal. Typical. I swore under my breath. I could have used a bit of internet knowledge about strange markings or rituals. I glanced around the room, searching for answers. The dim light from the flashlight flickered against the walls, revealing the peeling wallpaper and dusty corners of the cabin. Nothing stood out, except for a small bookshelf in the far corner. I walked over, hoping to find something useful. Maybe a book that mentioned folklore or local legends. My fingers brushed the spines of old novels and dusty guides. Nothing caught my eye until I spotted a thin, leather-bound journal tucked behind a large tome. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside, the pages were filled with handwritten notes that looked like they hadn't seen light in years. The ink was faded but legible. My heart raced as I began to read snippets. They described rituals, offerings, and strange occurrences near the cliffs. My stomach knotted. This wasn't just an ancient practice, it seemed to stem from this very place. The night brings forth the spirits, bound to the earth by the markings. I read aloud quietly, care not to disturb the stillness. A chill scurried down my spine. Each entry pulled me deeper into a web of unease. Suddenly a crack of wood echoed from outside. I stopped mid-sentence, the journal almost slipping from my fingers. My heart raced again. Could it be the figures? Had they come back? I darted to the window, peeking through the curtain. Darkness loomed, but I saw something moving between the trees. A low glow pulsed, almost like a heartbeat. The drums resumed, a steady thumping that resonated through the walls of the cabin. I couldn't just hide. I had to know what was happening. Gathering my courage, I stepped outside again, the flashlight illuminating the path. I wanted to call out, to confront whatever was out there, but I felt frozen, the fear tightening its grip around my throat. As I approached the edge of the trees, the glow intensified, revealing more figures than before. This time, they carried colorful torches. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The chant had shifted, now harmonizing with the beat of the drums. It wasn't just chaos. There was a rhythm, a haunting melody that echoed deep inside me. I realized I had a choice. I could walk away or step closer to the unknown. Before I could decide, a sharp pain shot through my foot. I looked down, startled. I had stepped on a sharp stone, but it wasn't just that. An image flashed in my mind, the markings on the trees, the map. It had something to do with the cliffs. Desperate to understand, I turned to go back and fetch the journal. That's when everything went dark. The flashlight flickered out, plunging me into midnight blackness. I fumbled for my phone again, but it was useless. My breathing quickened as I strained to listen. The drums had stopped. I was alone. Just as panic started to take over, a whisper brushed my ear. "Join us." I froze, the hairs on my neck standing tall. I was not alone anymore. I felt the whisper curl around my ear like a ghostly hand, and my heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to scream, but the sound felt lodged somewhere deep in my throat. I turned slowly, half expecting to see a face, but the darkness revealed nothing. The throbbing in my foot reminded me that I needed to stay alert. I inched backward, trying to make sense of the night surrounding me. Had that really been a voice? Or was it my mind playing tricks? I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The low glow returned, flickering out from the shadowed edge of the trees. I squinted, trying to see what cast that light. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement, just a flash. I turned, my instincts screaming at me to run. But as much as I wanted to retreat, a sense of curiosity tugged at me. I stepped cautiously toward the glow, each footfall muffled by the damp ground. As I drew closer, the chant returned, weaving through the air like smoke. It sounded almost inviting, but I couldn't see the figures. The torches must have been just beyond the tree line. Then it hit me. The markings. If those phrases in the journal were true, those symbols linked to this, whatever it was. But why would I care? Logic said to run, but curiosity held me in place. "Just look," I whispered to myself, as if giving myself permission. I took another step forward when suddenly a loud crack split the air just above me. I ducked instinctively, heart racing. A large branch had snapped, falling to the ground where I had stood a moment before. That was it. I couldn't stay here. I turned back. There was something vibrant woven through the air, and it thrummed beneath my skin, urging me to turn back. Just as I entered the trees, I heard it again. A soft, persuasive voice. "Join us." But this time I felt an undeniable pull. My legs felt heavy, the ground beneath me sparkling with energy. Memories flashed in my mind, moments from the journal, the way the spirits were drawn to the cliffs, the offerings, the sacrifices. I stumbled back against a tree, panic coursing through me. The weight of the journal burned in my pocket. It might hold answers, but at that moment, it felt like a cursed object. What if I was meant to uncover something I had no business touching? Through the murkiness, I saw the faint glow again, this time with figures edging into view, their faces half-lit and obscured. They moved in sync with the drumbeat, joining hands, swaying back and forth. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Then, without thinking, I yelled, "What do you want from me?" The sound echoed awkwardly in the thick air. The figures froze, their eyes locking onto me, glimmers of torchlight reflecting in their gaze. One of them stepped forward. From the shadows, I could see a slender woman clad in what looked like native attire. She tilted her head slightly as though considering my question. "Your place is with us," she said softly, the chant resurfacing, amplifying around me. A rush of dread filled my chest. I knew then that I had stumbled into something far beyond my understanding. I turned to flee but felt the ground grab hold of my feet, roots snaking around my ankles. I was trapped. Just beyond the trees, the chanting intensified, each note pulling me closer to an answer I wasn't ready to find. Something about that summer would haunt me forever. A night of choices unchosen, and that was when everything changed. The air thickened, and the voices rose to a crescendo. The ground felt alive, pulsing with energy. My heart hammered wildly, and I struggled to pull my feet free, but the roots tightened around my ankles like a vice. Panic clawed at my throat as the figures began to move again, closing in slowly. They were impossibly calm, their chanting undisturbed by my distress. "Let me go," I shouted, though my voice trembled. I was far from brave now. The slender woman stepped closer, her gaze unyielding. "You cannot escape your fate." The words hung in the air, thick with meaning. I realized my breath was shallow, every inhale a fight. The warmth of the air felt suffocating, filled with an ancient weight. The chanting, the throbbing beat seemed to resonate within my chest now, its rhythm pulling at me like a tide. I fought the urge to sway, feeling the weight of their gaze wash over me. As they approached, my eyes darted around. I needed to find something, anything, to break this hold. That's when I saw it, a glimmer behind the figures. What looked like a stone altar, etched with the same symbols I had seen in the journal, rose between roots that twisted up from the ground. Desperation fueled me. "What do you want?" I shouted, not caring if I sounded frantic. "Why here? Why me?" The woman chuckled, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You have been chosen. The island craves a bond, a soul to guide. We offer power, wisdom, power," I repeated, disbelief lacing my voice. A part of me was afraid to learn more, but another part wanted answers. I sensed the weight of history within those words. The chanting grew softer, a kind of lullaby that made the world feel distant. I could see flashes of images in my mind. The sea crashing against the cliffs, shadows dancing around the rocks, offerings laid out in reverence. I thought of the people who had disappeared, their faces haunting me like echoes. Was this why they had vanished? Was the island a trap, luring souls for its own purpose? "Embrace it," she urged, her arms open wide. "It's your choice. Join us." Join them? Images surged unbidden, memories swirling at the edges of my consciousness. The journal, its pages filled with cryptic warnings. The figures I'd read about. The sacrifices. Every story bled into the now, every warning unheeded. Do I fight? Or give in? No. I couldn't let this happen. My heart raced. The roots began to loosen just a bit. I used all my strength to drag my foot free from the stubborn roots. "Leave me alone," I screamed, breaking from their thrall. I turned, sprinting through the trees with no clear path. The chanting resumed, louder, more feral. I could almost feel their desire, their need for me as I fled into the darkness. I burst through a thicket of branches and stumbled onto a rocky outcrop. The ocean roared below, crashing against the cliffs. I was breathless, the salty air cool against my skin. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't let them catch me. As I raced toward the edge, I dared a look back. The figures had halted at the tree line, shadows mingling with echoes of the night. The woman stood apart, eyes glinting with something ancient. Expectation. That's when everything changed again. A bright flash blinded me, and I felt myself being drawn toward the ledge, the ground shifting beneath me. I realized too late that my summer on this island was far from over. I stumbled backward, the brightness swallowing my vision. My heart raced, adrenaline flooding my system. I tried to step away from the edge, but the ground felt slippery, almost alive beneath my feet. A cold wind whipped around me, bringing with it whispers that seemed to curl into my mind. "No!" I shouted, trying to steady myself. I could hear them chanting again, their voices rising powerfully. The thrill of fear coursed through me, fueling my instincts to survive. Then, just as suddenly as the flash had blinded me, everything went dark. The world felt still, like I was suspended in a void, caught between reality and a dream. I blinked rapidly, and slowly, colors seeped back into view. I was inside a small cave, dim light flickering from a cluster of glowing crystals embedded along the walls. For a moment I thought I was safe, but the murmurs echoed inside the cave, intensifying. I wasn't alone. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, a man with wild hair and wide, fearful eyes. He looked as lost as I felt. "You don't belong here," he rasped, his voice quivering. "What do you mean?" I stuttered. "Where are we?" "Not far from the shore," he said, glancing over his shoulder. There was panic etched on his face. "They'll find you. You have to go." "Who will find me?" I asked, confusion knotting in my stomach. My mind raced back to the figures in the clearing. Were they looking for me? He didn't answer. Instead, he darted deeper into the cave. I glanced back toward the entrance. The chanting was louder now, wrapping around me, a heavy blanket pressing against my skin. I had to make a choice. Should I follow him, or run back into the unknown? "Wait!" I called after him, desperate. "Please, I need to know what's going on." He hesitated, his breath coming in fast, shallow bursts. "There's no time. You're marked now. The island feeds off your soul. We're just vessels. You need to get away before it chooses you." A chill shot through me. "Marked? What do you mean?" The ground beneath our feet trembled, a low rumble that seemed to echo the layers of fear pooling in my chest. The man pressed his hands against the cave walls, and I could see his knuckles whitening. "It senses your fear. If you stay, it will claim you." A new wave of urgency hit me. I couldn't let this happen. I pushed past him, heading toward the cave's entrance. I hesitated at the threshold, fear clawing at me from both sides. That's when I saw it. A dark shadow creeping along the cave wall, shifting and writhing, alive in a way that made bile rise in my throat. I could almost feel its hunger, tasting the desire in the air. "Run!" the man shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. "Don't look back, you have to make it to the forest." With a final glance, I took off, sprinting down the rocky path that led back to the entrance. The shadows danced behind me, unfurling like fingers reaching for my soul. Just before I burst into the open, I could hear their chants rising again, a cacophony of voices that sent me into a full sprint toward the trees. But as I neared the safety of the woods, I heard a final, chilling whisper that stopped me dead in my tracks. "You can't escape what's already begun." The night closed in around me, and I knew the worst was still yet to come. I burst into the woods, gasping for breath, my lungs burning. The trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches twisting like the fingers of forgotten souls reaching for me. I didn't stop running. I couldn't. Behind me, the chanting faded, but my heart still thudded wildly. I was terrified, lost among the towering trunks, unsure of what lay ahead in this dark maze. The fear from the cave lingered, whispering that something was still hunting me. As I stumbled forward, I paused to listen. Silence wrapped around me except for the distant rustling of leaves. I needed a plan. I searched for a place to hide, but the forest seemed to swallow me whole, the shadows thickening with every passing moment. A flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned and my breath hitched in my throat. I wasn't alone. There, crouched low against the ground, was a figure. It was a girl, with tangled hair and wide eyes. She looked just as frightened as I felt. "Who are you?" I whispered, trying not to startle her. "They're coming," she whispered back, her voice trembling. "You need to hurry." "Who's coming?" I demanded, my voice rising in panic. "The ones from the cave. You don't understand. They'll take you if you don't get away." She was shaking and I could see the dirt smudged on her arms like battle scars. I was just in there. The man warned me. I trailed off, feeling the weight of her urgency. Don't dwell on him. We have to move. She grabbed my hand, and I let her pull me deeper into the woods. My mind raced. There was so much I didn't know. We wove between the trees, the ground uneven beneath our feet. My thoughts spiraled. I wanted to ask her so many questions. Were there more like us? What did she mean by, "They'll take you"? But before I could voice my thoughts, she stopped suddenly, her gaze fixed forward. I followed her stare and my blood ran cold. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, their features obscured by the darkness. It was tall and shapeless, reaching toward us with elongated limbs. The air felt electric, heavy with a palpable dread. "Run!" she shouted, pulling me along once again. We dashed through the trees, the fog swirling around us like a living thing. I glanced behind, and I could see the figure shifting, its essence melding with the shadows. It was following. My heart raced faster. I veered to the left, desperate to put distance between us. The girl stayed close, her grip tight. "This way," she urged, dragging me off the main path. As we plunged deeper into the woods, I heard a whisper catch on the wind. "You cannot hide from what you are now." I froze, the voice cutting through me like cold steel. "Did you hear that?" I gasped, turning to look at her. "Yes," she said, panic flashing in her eyes. "We must keep going." Her urgency pushed me forward, but my instincts screamed for me to turn back. What did they want with me? What was happening on this island? Just when I thought I couldn't run any longer, we stumbled into an open space, a small clearing lit by eerie, pale moonlight. In the center was a stone altar covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "That's it," she said, pointing. "If we reach there, we can hide." As we rushed toward the altar, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us. Whatever was hunting me was relentless. I had to wonder, would the altar protect us? Or was it an invitation to something worse? Before I could process it fully, a sound broke through the air, a low, guttural growl. The girl and I locked eyes, realizing we had nowhere left to run. "What now?" I whispered, fear choking me. She didn't answer. She was staring past me, her face paling. I turned just as the shadows closed in, and all I felt was dread. The shadows surged forward, thick and alive. I felt a chill wrap around my spine as the growl deepened, resonating from something far beyond the shadows. It echoed around us, amplifying my terror. The girl tugged me towards the altar, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and determination. "Quick, we can't stay here," she urged, her voice barely a whisper. I ran, but dread clawed at my insides. I could hear branches cracking. The figure was moving closer. I could barely think. All I wanted was to escape, to be anywhere but here. We reached the altar, and the moment we stepped onto it, the air shifted. I felt a strange warmth emanating from the stone, as if it recognized our presence. Glowing symbols pulsed rhythmically beneath our feet, casting a soft light that pushed back the shadows just a bit. Still tethered to her fear, I turned to the girl. "What happens now?" "I don't know," she admitted, eyes darting around. "But this should keep them away for a little while." "Who are they?" I demanded, trying to make sense of it all. "They're the ones who take people. They come for what's inside you." Her brow furrowed with worry. "It's connected to the cave." I felt queasy. What's inside me? My heart raced at the implication. They think you belong to them. They want to use you. Her voice trailed off, and I felt a horrible understanding creep in. The growl intensified, reverberating off the trees. The shadows swirled more frantically around the clearing, seeming to pulse with anger. I pressed my back against the stone, desperately searching for any sign of hope or escape. Suddenly, the lead figure burst forth from the darkness. A tall, spindly silhouette materialized, its face obscured but its intent clear. The ground trembled beneath us as it approached, long arms reaching for the altar. Panic surged within me. "We can't stay," I yelled, taking a step back. "No, we have to trust it," she insisted, her grip tightening on my arm. But my instincts screamed at me to run. This was a trap. The symbols glowed brighter as the figure reached out, its touch brushing against the barrier that separated us. An unsettling hiss filled the air, vibrating through my bones. What was happening? I felt the energy of the altar shifting, almost alive, as if responding to the figure's touch. And then I saw it. A flicker. A flash of movement from behind the altar. There was something more there. A hidden recess, or perhaps a doorway. "That way!" I shouted, breaking free from the girl's grip. I ran toward the flicker, stumbling over roots and rocks. "Wait!" she called, but I couldn't stop. Just as I reached the glow, I felt the shadows retreat slightly, a chance to escape. I glanced back one last time. The girl was still standing by the altar, fear etched on her face as the figure loomed closer. "Get away from her!" I screamed, but the words barely escaped my lips before everything went dark. Then I felt it, a rush of air and the dizzying sensation of being whisked away. My heart pounded as I was pulled into the glow behind the altar, the connection to the outside world severed. I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea what awaited me on the other side, but as I dove into the light, one thing became clear: the hunt had only begun. I emerged from the light into an entirely new realm, the air humming with a strange energy. It was thick and warm, a stark contrast to the chilling shadows I had just escaped. The ground beneath my feet was softer, like damp earth strewn with moss. I glanced around, confusion mingling with a flicker of hope. Where was I? The landscape unfolded in vibrant greens and browns, a dense forest stretching endlessly around me. Sunlight filtered through the treetops, casting playful patterns on the ground. Everything felt surreal, almost too beautiful after the menace I had just faced. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing slightly in the quiet. No answer came, just the rustle of leaves and distant birdsong. I took a cautious step forward, heart still racing. Had I really escaped, or was this another trick? Anxiety coiled within me. A soft whisper then brushed past my ear, too faint to understand. I froze, adrenaline kicking in again. "Who's there?" I demanded, looking around for any sign of movement. I felt so vulnerable standing alone in this unfamiliar place. In the distance I spotted a trail winding deeper into the woods, the underbrush thick on either side. Something compelled me to follow. Maybe I'd find answers, a way back, or even that girl. I needed to know she was okay. I made my way along the path, pushing through leafy branches. The forest was alive, buzzing with unseen creatures. Each sound made my skin prickle. I pressed on, deeper into the unknown. As I walked, I noticed symbols etched into the trees, similar to those on the altar. My heart skipped. I ran my fingers over the carvings, feeling a surge of energy pulse beneath my touch. Was this connected to the forces that almost claimed me? I turned around abruptly, half expecting a dark figure to loom behind me, but the woods remained still. I let out a shaky breath and shook my head, trying to focus on the trail ahead. Then I realized I was not alone after all. There, standing just ahead, was a child. He looked lost, his wide eyes scanning the trees as if he could see something I couldn't. He wore a ragged shirt, dirt smudged across his cheeks. I felt a strange familiarity wash over me, but I couldn't place it. I approached slowly. "Hey, are you okay?" His gaze snapped to mine, and for a brief moment he looked terrified. "They're coming," he said, voice trembling. "You shouldn't be here, you have to leave." "Who?" I asked, the urgency in his voice making my stomach churn. "The ones from the shadows. They follow you." A chill settled over me as the memories of the growling darkness came flooding back. I took a step forward, desperate to understand. But I escaped them. I ran away. The boy shook his head vigorously, fear etched into his tiny features. They'll find you. They always do. I glanced back toward the path, the dark woods feeling suddenly oppressive. I felt the ground tremble beneath me again. The sense of an impending danger tightened my throat. Then, just beyond the trees, I saw flickering shapes moving slowly, shadows creeping towards us. Panic surged within me as I realized the boy was right. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning again. "Run!" he shouted, and that command snapped me back into action. I turned and bolted down the path, heart pounding, wondering just how far I could run before they caught up to me again. The forest closed in around me, branches snagging at my clothes as I sprinted. The whispers were growing louder, echoing my fears, reminders of what had hunted me so relentlessly. I could still see the flickering shapes dancing at the edge of my vision, shadows that moved with unnatural grace. My breath came in ragged gasps, but I couldn't slow down. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, pushing me forward. After what felt like hours, I broke into a small glade, sunlight spilling down like a waterfall. It momentarily blinded me, catching my breath. But no sooner had I paused to gather myself than laughter, childish and chaotic, echoed through the trees. I ducked low, instinctively searching for cover. "Keep moving," the boy's voice whispered from somewhere behind me. "We can't stop." I decided to trust him, despite my fear. As I navigated through the clearing, I kept my eyes on the flickering lights that seemed to beckon me further, illuminating a path deeper into the forest. "Where are we going?" I shouted, urgency spilling into my words. "To the old shrine," he replied, his small figure darting ahead. "They can't reach you there." The old shrine? I wasn't sure if I'd heard of such a place before, but I felt a pull toward it. An instinct that maybe I could find some form of strength or safety there. I followed without question, pushing through the underbrush, focusing only on my footing. I had no time for second-guessing. The laughter behind us twisted into guttural growls, and I felt the air thicken. The shadows were eager, closing in like predators ready to spring. I glanced back, panic erupting in my chest. It was then that I saw them, pale faces staring at us with hungry eyes. But I couldn't stop. I launched myself forward, desperate to find whatever the boy was leading me to. The shrieks and growls grew louder until they were nearly deafening. The forest itself felt like it was alive, forcing me into unfathomable depths. Finally, the boy skidded to a halt, and I nearly crashed into him. There, framed by trees cloaked in vines and age, was an ancient stone structure, worn but magnificent. Symbols carved deep into the walls glowed faintly, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. "This is it," the boy breathed, falling to his knees. "Inside there." But I didn't wait to hear the rest. I dashed toward the doorway, feeling drawn to the carvings that decorated the entrance. The very air around me shimmered with palpable power, a sense of the past mingling with the urgency of the present. As I entered the shrine, my heart raced anew. The walls whispered secrets, the air thick with history and urgency. My fingers traced the surface of the stone, feeling the energy flow through me, connecting me to something ancient, a force greater than fear or shadow. Outside I could hear the sinister laughter again, mixed with angry cries that chilled my blood. I stood in the heart of the shrine, my mind racing, unsure of what to do next. "Will they find us here?" I whispered, but the boy nodded gravely. "They know this place too," he said. "But we have to activate the circle. That's our only chance." "Circle?" I stammered, but even as I blinked I could see it, an intricate pattern of symbols spread across the stone floor. It was faint but familiar, like those marks I had seen etched into the trees and the altar. We bent down, fingers brushing against the markings, and as we did, the symbols glowed brighter, pulsing rhythmically. Energy throbbed within me, sparking hope even amidst despair. "Concentrate," the boy urged, eyes wide with determination. "Call to it, we can resist." My breath quickened as the growls rang even louder, the shadows gathering outside the shrine like a storm. Fear clawed at me, but I pushed it down. This was a moment to be bold, to face the impending darkness with light. I focused, calling out to whatever remnants of power lay at my fingertips. "We bind you in this place. You have no hold over us." The air thickened, the energy beneath us crackling. The boy joined me, his voice rising, and together we began chanting, the ancient sounds flowing from our lips as if awakening something long dormant. As our voices rose, the shadows began to retreat, twisting against the light radiating from the patterns beneath us. The figures outside shrieked, their forms visibly bending in anguish against the ancient power we had summoned. And then, silence. The vibration of the chant echoed in the shrine as we opened our eyes, the energy shimmering around us. The shadows had receded, their figures vanishing like smoke, swallowed by the woods. But just as quickly as a calm descended, I felt the weight of uncertainty in the air. We had sealed them away for now. But was it enough? Those whispers of darkness had grown attached to me, lingering even in the light of this newfound strength. "What did we do?" I whispered to the boy, who remained breathless beside me. "Did it work?" "I think we bought some time," he replied, though his face was pale. "But they won't stop." The echoes of our chant hung in the clearing, a reminder of what we faced. I looked down at the gleaming symbols surrounding us, as if they whispered their secrets to us again, moments that would bind the past and future. Would I ever be free from this cycle? Would I always be hunted? In that deep silence, my heart filled with lingering uncertainty. For all our efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness still lingered just beyond the edge of the trees, waiting for another chance. "I'm not ready to go back yet," I murmured, feeling the oppressive weight of unknown futures now resting solely on my shoulders. The boy looked at me with wide eyes, understanding the fear nestled deep within us both. "Then we stand together," he vowed. Outside, the forest stirred quietly, suggesting the arrival of dawn, but I could sense the encroaching nightiness just beneath the surface. We stood on the brink of something far greater than either of us could foresee, and as we turned back to the shrine together, uncertainty stretched before us, a path still to be forged, defined only by the choices we would yet face.